For me, I feel like every single driver in the Cup Series obviously has grown up either, short track racing on pavement, late models. We have some road course guys, we have a lot of dirt guys. But the dirt guys don't have any opportunity to go back to their roots like, those other two disciplines do. So, everybody says that, we're the best drivers, right? Well, I want to see the best drivers challenge at every discipline. We have, super speedways, mile and a half, short tracks, road courses, now street circuits. There's no reason, in my opinion, for us not to have at least one dirt race. I don't think we necessarily need more than one, but we definitely at least need to have one, just from the side of being able to tie it all together. But also I feel like it's important just as a sport, and even motorsports in general. There's a lot of people that are introduced to dirt racing because of NASCAR, and also vice versa. There's a lot of dirt fans that probably don't watch NASCAR. They're kind of against it at times, but because they run on dirt, they'll watch that one race every year. So if we can turn somebody into a fan of NASCAR because of the Bristol dirt race, they go to a NASCAR event or they start watching more, it's a win-win. Same for local dirt tracks. There's a lot of local dirt tracks near everybody. And if they watch the Bristol dirt race and are entertained by it, they're more likely to go to their local dirt track, and it helps motorsports in general. So it's something that I feel like is definitely needed on the schedule. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be at Bristol every year, but it definitely needs to have a dirt race on the schedule, in my opinion.
Thank you for the time, Chase. I'm wondering how you prepare for a dirt race and specifically whether simulations are any help.
No, I truthfully, I don't feel like the simulator does the greatest job, on the dirt stuff. We've ran some laps on it in the past, but it's not anything that we necessarily run a lot of. For me, I just feel like going and running dirt kind of gets me back in the mindset. For me, I feel like, all the dirt guys in general, we kind of know that feel that we need when we go to a dirt track. But it's so nice just to kind of go back and get in that rhythm. So, for me, running the truck race, just so I can kind of get a read on how the dirt is different this year, how it, is prepped and how it changes throughout the race. But then also, going and running a dirt late model this week, just kind of getting back in that mindset, I feel like is good. So for me, I probably won't do a whole lot of sim work, but definitely we'll try to run as many dirt races as I can, leading into this week with, I'm testing tomorrow and then racing Thursday. Then I'll, have practice Friday, race Saturday, and race Sunday as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
David Hoffman, you're up.
Thank you. Chase, going into this weekend, just how does a cup car and a truck differ from the typical sprint car late model on dirt?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely drive totally different. A dirt car, a specifically built dirt car, like a sprint car or late model, that's what it's built to do. That's what it's going to go around the racetrack faster than anything else. That's just what it's meant to do. So, it does everything faster. It reacts better, has way more grip. It's lighter. This does everything way better. And the speeds are obviously way, way higher. So, the cup car and the truck even drive pretty drastically different, I feel like. The cup car does things maybe a little bit better than the truck. The truck is a little bit lazier. With the independent suspension and stuff on the cup car, it seems like you can kind of be a little more aggressive with it. But yeah, I mean, it definitely, compared to, a sprint car or late model, the cup car and even the truck feel kind of slow motion. So I don't feel like, I always say I feel like sometimes having a dirt background can be a disadvantage at these races, just because you drive it so different. The only time I feel like it's a huge advantage to be a dirt guy is early in the race, when the track has a lot of grip, when it's tacky and, when it's more muddy instead of, kind of slick and hard. I feel like that's when the dirt guys can kind of really shine, just because we understand the concept of how to get the car into the corner. It's so opposite for all these non-dirt guys to go into the corner and lift way early and then be wide open. So we just understand how to get the car to turn when it's like that. And then obviously if it comes like it was last year to, running the cushion and running up on the wall and just how you have to run, the car, I feel like having dirt background helps in those situations. But when it's, slick and slow around the middle of the bottom, it's almost a disadvantage, I feel like, to be a dirt guy, because it almost is more of just a really slick, wore out pavement track.
Thanks, Chase.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's go to Mitchell.
Chase, it seems like every year we see quite a few guys do the double duty here for the truck and the cup race. How beneficial do you think that running both those races will be for you for Sunday's race?
I don't know if it's a huge benefit because the cars and the trucks definitely drive totally different. Especially now with the next gen. Before it was pretty similar. I felt like it was almost the same. Uh, with the exception of the power, but I feel like now it's not totally correlating, like it would in the past, but just from a track standpoint, I feel like you can kind of see how the track changes. It could still change totally different from Saturday to Sunday, just depending on how they prep it and kind of where guys run. But you still have a general idea of kind of where to be, where, the lanes kind of change. And I just feel like you get a better read on the dirt. So, as a dirt track, guy, you're constantly watching the dirt, throughout the night when other cars are on the racetrack and things like that. And just being actually on the racetrack, I just feel it's like gives you that slight bit of edge, just because you kind of know, what the track, how quickly it changes and things like that. So I feel like that's the biggest advantage. But, if you were a non-dirt guy, you probably are just going there to get laps. But I feel like as a dirt guy, that's kind of the one thing you're looking for is just how the dirt changes and kind of knowing that for Sunday.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Let's go to Lee Spencer.
Thank you, and thanks for having us. Wanted to ask you, Chase, Noah Gass said last week that James McFadden had helped him acclimate to World of Outlaws. And one of the things of it is that it is so competitive that when the Outlaws race other people, or where people come from other series and run in the Outlaws, they want the Outlaws to shine. So whether they're racing the Posse or whoever, or, Rico comes in and does a couple one-offs, they want to be the best. My question is, you're going into Bristol and you have guys like, Jonathan Davenport coming in and other people from Dirt Discipline. Do you kind of feel that same thing, that there are bragging rights on the line for the NASCAR guys to outshine the guys that come in to do the one-offs?
I don't know. I feel like it's a tricky question because Jonathan Davenport, for example, is an incredible race car driver. There's no doubt that he can get in anything and go fast. I mean, I've seen him run the Chili Bowl and be, pretty competitive, never running laps in a midget. And I think just the experience level that we have, like we should be faster than him, right? Like, yes, he's ran dirt late models his whole life. Is extremely successful. I mean, probably won more money last year than anybody's ever won in their entire life in late models in 1 year. So, I mean, he can obviously drive a race car, right? But from the experience side of things and how we just know the Cup car, we understand what it needs to do. Granted, it's totally different on dirt, but to me, it's no different than, for example, me or even Kyle Busch going and running the late model this week at Bulls Gap. Them guys should beat us. I mean, yeah, Kyle Busch is an incredible race car driver, but from an experience standpoint, he doesn't have the experience in those cars, like a Jonathan Davenport or a Hudson O'Neal or one of these guys that run late models year round, 100 races a year. So I think there is a certain pride, I would say, I guess, that you should beat them from an experience level, but at the same time, when you're putting incredible race car drivers in and cars that are really good race cars, there's the opportunity for them to go and run up front. And I think that's where the dirt guys, it doesn't surprise me, even going back to the Eldora stuff, you look at Bobby Pierce or guys like that, there's guys that can go up there and battle up front and battle for the win. But I almost think too, just the pressure that comes along with that, being in a situation where you could potentially, like, if you're Jonathan Davenport and you're battling up front at the end of this race, there's a lot of pressure that comes along with battling for a win in a cup race and just never being there. It's hard to put that behind you, I feel like. So just the experience level that a lot of these guys in the Cup Series have, I feel like kind of give them that edge. But I think, for me being a dirt guy, I want Jonathan Davenport to do well just because I want people in the NASCAR world to see how good these dirt guys are. I always talk about Logan Riely. He's fully capable of doing it at this level, but, he doesn't necessarily get the opportunity where, same for Jonathan Davenport. He's obviously a good enough race car driver to do it at this level. It's just a matter of getting his name out there.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
Let's go to Jim with motorsport.com.
Hey Chase, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Jim?
Good. Kind of along those lines a little bit. I know it's been a very small sample size with just 2 races, but how would you judge the quality of the racing at the 2 Cup dirt races we've had so far? And how well do you think your fellow competitors, many of which don't have dirt experience, have kind of gotten acclimated to it?
Yeah, I would say, the first year was, maybe honestly a D minus, right? Like it was really a struggle, and I think NASCAR just truthfully probably didn't know any better. I mean, there's a reason that when we go dirt race, any day of the year, we race at night. A day show is very rare. And anytime you run a day show, it's always dusty. It's always a struggle to see. The racetrack's not very good. And there's just a lot of variables that, from NASCAR side with TV and things, it's hard to run a night race sometimes. So I think, last year's race was about as good as it's going to get, from a racetrack standpoint. I mean, we could run the bottom, you could run the middle, you could run the top. Granted, the rain probably helped us quite a bit. So hopefully we'd learned something last year from a track preparation standpoint of maybe being able to, go water it in between stages or something. I don't know what that is, but I do feel like the rain saved us a little bit last year from a track standpoint. But at the same time, it's hard to give a proper dirt race given the circumstances that we're in with the car, with overheating and the windshield and things like that. It's hard to put the racetrack how it needs to be because our cars can't handle that. So, if we had an opportunity to be able to not get hot and, kick the front end with mud and have the windshield out and things like that, you could see a true proper dirt race. And I think it would be better, but obviously our hands are a little bit tied just because of the car and things like that. So I think last year is an A in my standards. I thought the race was really good from a track standpoint, things like that. And, going back to your other part of the question, I think the Cup guys, if you're in the Cup Series, you're a really, really good race car driver, and really good race car drivers figure things out really quickly. And, going back to what I was saying a little bit ago to one of the other questions, when it's really slick and slow and dry, it's almost just like a slick pavement track. And, you saw guys like Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano that have zero dirt experience to be really, really good. But, when it's like it was at the end of last year and, even at the beginning of last year's race and it's super heavy, that's when you normally see the dirt guys kind of go to the front and the pavement guys struggle. But, if it's slick and slow, the pavement guys are going to be really, really good.
Thanks, bud.
Yep. Thank you.
Let's go to Bob Pockris.
Yeah, Chase, I'm curious if you, in preparing, have you watched the end of last year's race, or do you turn off before the end of last year's race? And what do you think about, when I assume you see the highlights, what's going back in your memory when watching it?
Yeah. I mean, truthfully, I haven't watched it back this year yet. But I mean, I've definitely watched it back other times. And I think for me, it's one of those things I wish that I could do 100 things different, right? Like I wish I would have caught him earlier so that the one lap, the one opportunity I had to even attempt to pass wasn't the last lap, the last corner. I still think that it's hard to say that I would have done anything different, truthfully. Just being in that moment, your adrenaline's, pumped up. I'd ran him down almost a straightaway in 10, 15 laps. So this whole time you just see, him getting closer and closer to me, and your adrenaline and anxiety is getting higher and higher as the laps dwindle down. So, being in that position, you're running dirt. I was running the cushion super, super hard, and you get in this mindset of your dirt racing. And, if I would have caught him with 5 to go versus the last lap, last corner, it would have been a little bit easier to probably try some different things. But, at that moment in time, I felt like that was my best opportunity to win the race. And, I went into the corner to slide him, and really quickly remember that I was in a car that you cannot throw slide jobs from even a half a car length back. And, I did everything I could at the time to try to stay off of him. I think even Tyler was talking about it, how in his interview, he could hear me running wide open, trying to stay off of him. So, for me, looking back on that race, yeah, I wish the ending would have been different, not only for me, but also for Tyler. It obviously worked out for Tyler. He's had 4 wins since then, but, yeah, I think, it helped. I think the only reason I didn't get a black eye after that race was because it was a dirt guy I did the move to. If that's somebody that isn't Kyle Larson, Ricky Stenhouse, Christopher Bell, or Tyler Reddick in the field, I'm probably getting a black eye after. But all 4 of them guys understood where that move was coming from. And, even Tyler said he would have done the exact same thing, because that's just what you do in those situations when you grow up dirt racing.
Thank
you. Yeah, thanks.
Nathan, all you, man.
Thank you, Chase. Kind of following up from a couple of minutes ago. What do you expect for track conditions on Sunday? Obviously, you mentioned the rain kind of helping things out last year, it being a night race. I don't think that there's any rain in the forecast on Sunday. So what do you kind of expect in that regard? And how do you expect NASCAR to kind of keep up with those changing track conditions?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of weather, leading into this weekend with, rain and things like that. So it really depends on how they have the racetrack right now. If they have it opened up where the rain's really going to go down deep, versus it being really hard packed where the water's kind of just running off the top of it, that'll change what we have. The truck race will obviously change what we have. There's just a lot of variables, without seeing the racetrack and seeing how they have it tilled up or things like that. And then even on Sunday, if we get rain 2 or 3 days in a row, if they have it hard packed, well, as soon as they kind of blow that top layer off, it's just going to be dry underneath it. So it all comes down to what they do with the keys to the water truck and to the grader and things like that. But yeah, hopefully we can have a really good race. I know there was talks about maybe letting a couple other cars go out there that are non-cup cars, or leaving some trucks over or something, or late models to kind of go out there and blow that grease off at the beginning of the race, so our cars maybe won't get as much mud, but we can still have a good racetrack at the beginning. So yeah, I don't know. It really is hard to say without seeing the racetrack and kind of what the rain's going to do. But hopefully we have a really good racetrack like we did last year. Racing at night's going to help. Anytime we race at night, it's going to be better than during the day on dirt. So hopefully we can have a similar racetrack to what we had last year.
Let's go to Pete.
Hey, Chase, I apologize if this is so basic, but what's the fun of racing on dirt? What makes it so much fun for a lot of you guys? When you talk to you just light up when you talk about your day's dirt racing.
Yeah, I think, for just in general, as a race car driver, you always love when you're slipping, sliding around, when you're kind of manhandling the car, and you feel like as a driver, you make a difference. There's some tracks you go to where as a driver, especially on pavement, some of these 1.5 miles and things like that, where it is very, very car dominant. Now, that the driver still makes a difference, but not as much. On the dirt, you can normally take lesser equipment and run better with it. But I think anybody that is like a motorsports enthusiast, right? Like loves going out when it's snow and going in a parking lot and just slipping and sliding around, spinning the tires, things like that. And it's the same on dirt. It's just a lot of fun because you are manhandling it and driving it. And you feel like as a driver, you really make a big difference. So, I think it's a little bit different, for dirt guys versus, non-dirt guys. I feel like the non-dirt guys, they despise this race, but at the same time, they do have a lot of fun. But for the dirt guys, when the track is like it was the first year, I think all the dirt guys were like, man, this stinks. It's not what dirt racing is. But then last year, all the dirt guys had a blast with it because it was more similar to what we actually grew up doing. So It's all relative to the racetrack. But to answer your question simply, it's just because you have way more power than you can put on the ground and you're slipping and sliding around. And as a driver, you feel like you make a little bit more of a difference in kind of how you run that day.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. We're going to go to Daniel and then finish things up with Dustin Long.
Kind of going off of Jim's question earlier, through 2 years of this, of the Cup drivers with non-dirt backgrounds, who has impressed you the most with what they've been able to accomplish so far during this whole dirt experiment?
Yeah. I mean, Joey Logano, I remember saying literally before we went to Bristol for the first time on dirt that Joey Logano was a guy that I think could go and win, just because I feel like his car control is just unbelievable. He's so good at what he does, and has really zero dirt experience. Kyle Busch has a little bit of dirt experience, but yeah, Joey would be one that really surprised me. And even last year when it was more of a typical dirt track style, I thought Joey did a really good job. I think he was running 3rd or 4th there at the end. So he's somebody that I've always been just honestly amazed by his talent and ability. But really, surprised me, but at the same time didn't surprise me. But, I would say, even Daniel Suarez has kind of surprised me at how good he's been the last 2 years. That's a guy that I would typically think would struggle when we go to a place like that. And has done a really good job both years and kind of been up front, being able to battle for leading laps and things like that. So I would say Joey would be my easy answer, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Chase, with the talk of whether there could be rain this weekend or if this race continues at some point, there's going to be the possibility of rain. these cars still have windshields, and you're still going to have that potential issue the first year. So is there, if this event is going to continue on, is there a way to work through that? Or is it something that, look, if you guys get enough rain at a track one day there at a dirt track, that you're not going to be able to run for a while because of all the mud buildup like we saw the first year?
Yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of variables from the track side, from the car side. There's just a lot of things that can really dictate when we can run the race. You know, there's some dirt tracks I've seen literally bring in a helicopter to help drive the track, but at Bristol, you know, with the jumbotron and the wires that go from it, like that's not even, you know, feasible there. So there's just a lot of things. And then even Bristol, you know, it's probably harder for them to get as much rain because they can't literally get anything up the banking if it's slick. Like it's so banked that it's hard to even get anything on the track to work it. So, you know, then from a car side, you know, I know that, you know, taking the windshields out was a real thing that they looked at, but, you know, with the safety side, and if a piece of lead came out or something, you know, there's no helmet visor or helmet that is even strong enough to, you know, withstand that. So, you know, they got to keep our safety in mind too. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard because there is a lot of variables, but hopefully we can get the race in. And even if it does rain, for example, as long as we can still race at night, I think that's the most important thing. We can't say for whatever reason, we have to move it to Monday. We can't race Monday during the day. We have to race Monday at night. I think that's the most important thing here.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Dustin.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here, Chase, and good luck this weekend.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.